Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chemi. Eric Chemi. Politely Pushy. I'm Eric Chemi, and this is Politely Pushy. Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chemi. Today, I'm joined by Jon Arnold. He's an independent technology analyst focusing on communications, VoIP, telecom, all of those great topics that I'm excited to dig into today. Jon, thanks so much for joining me here.
Hey, you're welcome, Eric. It's really good to be doing this with you guys. We haven't done one of these before, so really we're trying to, reach a broader audience. And there are many who know me, but there are plenty who don't. So this will help address the latter, right?
I'm taken aback by your client roster. Anyone can go to jarnoldassociates.com, see the client roster. A lot of big names there. When I see Huawei on there, I see Skype, I see Vonage, I see Zoom, I see Ring Central, Cisco, Avaya. What are they bringing you on to do? When they say, hey, Jon, we want you to come work for us, we're writing you a check. What do they want from you?
Yes. So the world of being a technology analyst is mostly about what we would just simply call thought leadership, where what they value from us is our industry-based expertise and knowledge, because we work with and speak with and attend events from across the industry. So most of these vendors include us in their analyst relations programs. So we get a pretty good, insider view of these companies, and they trust us to, keep the good stuff close to the vest and share the public stuff with our take on things. And so where they will bring in an independent analyst is usually to create some form of independent thought leadership, Eric, and that usually takes the shape of things like white papers, case studies, articles, interviews, webinars, interviewing executives, being on panels, making presentations to their customers. All these are different scenarios where we're giving kind of an industry-based view on things. So our role, and we are not hired to, tout a company's particular products. So you'll never see me talking about, oh, this is what's so great about Cisco or Microsoft or Zoom. It's more about what value their technologies bring to address the business problems that the buyers are faced with. So ultimately, we see our role as educating the marketplace with objective analysis. And by association, the vendors come off looking good, because we're not really here to, wave their flag so much as focus on the value that their technologies and the broader technologies in the industry bring to the business decision makers and buyers.
Do you find that after they've hired you, all of a sudden you see more value in their product than maybe you had seen in the past?
Oh, that can happen. Sure. Like things that, I didn't know you did that kind of thing, right? Or that you had a certain type of customer base, or that they have these kind of interesting maybe partnerships or integrations with other tech players that might be below the radar. Maybe it's a bit of the secret sauce that they have, that kind of thing. So yeah, sure. When it kind of exceeds expectations, I suppose, you got to be tempered in some of these things. And there's no harm in genuinely saying, oh, by the way, this is something I really think they're doing really well, or I really like this feature. So, we can certainly share that opinion. And that, there's a fine line with all this stuff. And, journalists, as you know, Eric, you guys are in the PR world as well. Journalists have to, they go to school to learn how to do these things. So they know kind of where the Chinese walls are or aren't. Analysts, just as a point of distinction, you don't go to school to be an analyst in the technology world. You kind of grow into the role. So we are not governed by a set of principles or accreditations that say a financial analyst has to have. So that's a bit of a gray area. And the only way you can have longevity doing this kind of work is you got to show, you got to be objective. You got to have integrity. You can take advantage of a lot of things, leak out some stuff that's supposed to be NDA, but you know what? You only can do that once. And then once they're on to you, you kind of you're out. The insider element to what we do that's built on trust, right?
Is there pressure, though, to push the objectivity a little bit in the favor of the client, in the favor of the person paying you, right? You're never going to come out there and say, hey, their product's bad, they're not a great pick, they're the third best solution, I'd always go with the other two guys. Like, you can never do that if they're paying you.
Well, that's true, but on the other hand, it's all about, like any other kind of consulting type of arrangement, it's all about, setting expectations up front. So when it comes to like scoping out a project of some kind, usually you got to set the ground rules straight ahead up front, where they know going in, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to say this. Where it gets dicey, though, I will say, Eric, is especially in large company situations, it's usually, as you would know too, there's too many cooks. So even though the first group of people you talk to, they get it, they got your back on all this stuff, as soon as other departments, line of business people, maybe another layer up of management comes in after the fact, and they say, well, no, that's not what we want. And then it gets a little more difficult, where you kind of have to defend your ground and say, well, still, you know what, that's not what I was brought in to do. And so we have to kind of, we got to manage the expectations that way. So it is tricky stuff, but generally speaking, they won't come right out and say, we disagree with your findings and we're not going to publish them. I have never come across that before. And again, if you're doing a good job, they're not going to. And sometimes, by the way, Eric, some vendors are, what do you want to call it, open-minded enough or confident enough to say, you know what, we want you to find the holes. We want you, to do it if you do it in a professional manner, we're okay with that, because we want our partners and customers to see that we're not perfect, but we're still doing most of the important things right. So there is a little bit of that, but you start talking with, like, the public companies, they have all kinds of public market pressures to deal with and earnings to meet and all this stuff. They're a little more sensitive, and not surprisingly, they will also be a little more, middle of the road in terms of the things they want an independent person to be doing.
What about being independent? How does that change your approach, your business plan, your model, as opposed to, hey, the big guys have that brand name, you only have Jon Arnold, you're not Gartner, Forrester, IDC, that kind of thing?
Exactly. So our little tribe, Eric, I can count them on probably two hands of how many people who are truly like independents. And we're pretty much all one-man operations or one-woman operations. There's another layer above us, which would be like the boutique practices, which have a smaller group, maybe 4 or 5 analysts in one little team. But the bigger ones, independent analysts, as a rule of thumb, have generally come out of that world. So I got my kind of training in this industry working for Frost and Sullivan. That's where I learned my kind of basics of the industry. So their model is built on what we use subscription sales, where they get their clients to buy, commit to an annual, usually subscription for a set number of reports and maybe consulting hours. So that's where they get the big fat fees. And then we go to work as analysts fulfilling the requirements of that subscription. Independent analysts, as a matter of course, we generally don't publish research. We're not in that business of writing industry reports. I'm a market researcher by trade, so I have actually a pretty deep skill set in that discipline that I don't know any other analyst who has. But generally speaking, I will do custom market research for vendors, and those work out really well.
And does that custom market research get published, or does it just go to them privately?
Well, I always say you can get a lot of value doing a little of both. So in other words, the whole idea is you're creating, to me, I tell clients, there's nothing more valuable than your own research data. Proprietary data has the most value and leverage for your brand. And that's how I try to sell them on market research. And I say, but you know what? Yes, obviously you're going to produce results that go to the market in general. You can also kind of slice and dice it to say top level findings, that's what we write about in No Jitter. Kind of the deeper dive stuff, we save it just for maybe our best partners to share with them. And then there's going to be a strategic element, the stuff that you don't publish. It's more for top management for their strategy, right? Because you could do some, perception testing. You could do some competitive, comparisons from what the market is telling you that you don't publish, but they they use it as a benchmark, to see how they stack up, what product features they should be dropping or adding, the strategic kind of things that you do. But yeah, so there's a range of these kind of things. So, but the project mix is pretty broad. It's writing, it's speaking, it's all, video, like these kind of things, webinars, podcasts. There's a whole range of things. But we could probably move on a little bit to this, Eric, because the things are changing. The market is kind of responding to the big AI story in many ways.
What have you noticed in terms of your day to day? How has it changed the most?
Well, day to day, so it ties into what you asked earlier about. So how do I do my business as opposed to a big analyst firm? Because I've been doing it a long time. This is my 20th year as an independent, and most independents have been doing this for a while. The relationships are kind of pretty mature, right? So we have not just the personal relationships, but also the ongoing relationships with a lot of the vendors, where there's going to be turnovers of product managers all the time. But if the reputation is good and the work keeps coming, it doesn't really matter who's there, as long as the right kind of people who are there who value what we do. Not everybody wants to work, as you say, with a single practitioner. They want the brand, and in many cases, it's worth it for them to pay for the Gartner or the IDC, slapping the label on there for legitimacy in the market. Where the sweet spot for smaller guys like me is often more in the tier 2 type of market, mid-market players who aren't going to spend the 6 figures and up with the Gartners of the world to buy that branding. For them, that's just too rich for their blood. So they have less money to spend. They can get a much better return working with smaller independents like myself, who are kind of at that level in our ecosystem, right? We're not, we're the smaller guys. So yes, small vendors could really help from our services, but they generally don't have the budget to work with analysts. But mid-market is a little bit, they're big enough to have budget and need to work with analysts, but they don't necessarily have to hire IDC or Forrester for every little thing. So there's room there for independence as well.
What are they most concerned about, clients right now? Is it AI? Like when they bring you on right now and you're having a conversation, let's say this past summer, what's the biggest issues and worries that you're hearing about?
Well, for them, it's certainly, it is, everything is about AI right now. And the big thing for the vendors is they're all telling similar stories. So first of all, as you know, in the messaging world, how do you differentiate, right? That's always a challenge because everyone's using the same handful of AI companies who are, the hyperscalers really kind of own the whole landscape. So it's really hard to stand out that way. So their challenge is A, differentiating, and B, it's the adoption rate. So in other words, what they're putting out into the market, very AI kind of first, AI forward kind of solutions and value propositions, is in most cases pretty far ahead of what the buyers are willing and able to handle. Right? Because a lot of them are still taking their first steps with AI. They just can't go a whole hog into a full-blown AI solution or platform that kind of transforms everything that they've ever done. That's too risky for them. And tied to that, of course, is, well, what's the ROI? Am I getting tangible results that make a difference and justify this path? Because AI, like a lot of things that are in the cloud, it's that OpEx model where the spigot never turns off. Like that's why it's kind of, you start to miss the days of prem-based technology where you make the big outlay up front to buy the hardware and the CapEx, and then you own it, right? And then
That seemed easier. That made more sense.
way
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
So it's like leasing versus buying, like with a car, right? Long term, you're going to pay more in the cloud, yes, but because cloud is constantly evolving, especially with AI, the value proposition grows over time. It doesn't remain static. Like PBX, it provides the same value to the business on day one as it does 15
Right.
years.
Or like the car gets worse. The car is not improving over time.
Yeah, you can get, although to be fair, because cars are now basically software on
Yeah.
wheels,
Yeah.
as long as the software keeps getting refreshed and updated, you are still able to add some forms of new value that kind of offset a bit of the regular depreciation that comes from the hardware itself, from the hard asset of a vehicle that's always going to get older and with wear and tear. So that's a challenge because there's a few angles to this, but the main thing is that the big question that the buyers often have with AI is like, where do I start?
So what do you tell them? Where do they start?
Yeah. So, and it's the same prescription that I think any other analyst would give, but it is really, first of all, start small, take on small projects that are fairly risk-free and are internally facing, not customer facing, because you're going to make mistakes.
That's interesting. A lot of people want to push out customer facing so people can see, especially public companies. Look what we're doing.
Exactly. And there are, by the way, I said earlier about being a public company. Yeah, there are some optics to this where a lot of times what happens is it comes from the top. When senior management just dictates, we got to do AI, they don't understand it, but the message comes down to the business level and they say, oh boy, we have to get something going to keep them happy. So there are a little bit of some optics and politics involved there, which is tricky. But for us, it's A, start small, B, internally facing, like focus on automating processes from workflows and things like that, that if it goes wrong, no one's really going to know. Just, your own staff know you're taking baby steps along the way and it will get better, right? And then the other thing, of course, is to, instead of being so focused about the shiny ball of the technology itself, go to the problems. What are your business issues? And let's break it down from there, because AI can be used for any use case, but you've got to understand what is the problem set, what are the hiccups and shortcomings of how we're doing things now, and then people like us help educate them on, well, AI can be used for X, Y, and Z things that, because we're fairly deep in it, we kind of know the use cases, and they may not have thought of it that way, because it's very easy to take a single-minded approach with AI and say, oh, we're going to automate so we can save costs. Okay, that can be a raison d'etre for AI, and often it is, but that's not the only thing. And research will show that as much as businesses get benefit of reduced costs with AI, they also get new revenues, because when it's used in different ways, AI can help actually improve customer experience, customer acquisition, that, things that drive the top line, which is what management really wants to know about, right?
When you give answers that they don't want to hear, when you say, here's where you should start, and they think, well, we don't like what you said, because, we are senior management, we think this, what happens usually? Do they come around to your point of view, or does no one ever come around to your point of view?
Oh, well, okay. So I'm not usually in those positions where I'm trying to drive the business strategy in terms of what they need to do. It's more about why you need to do these things. But in the cases where I have been in those kind of conversations, it's very kind of muted, because they will be, I would say, deferential, but they'll be accommodating because they respect the independence of an analyst in the room. But behind closed doors, the conversation might get very different. But I'm not there to tell them that they're wrong, or their business is gonna go broke in 2 years if they don't get on the bandwagon. I'm happy to tell them those things, but that's not what they're hiring me for. I'm not there to be their strategy advisor on the whole AI story. That's, they're going to bring in the McKinseys of the world, the bigger companies, to do that. But I suppose, as you say this, Eric, geez, now you're making me think about, I should be carving a path for more like advising SMBs on their strategy. That's normally not the role that an analyst plays. But as I said before, there's no guidelines about what constitutes an analyst these days. So there's nothing stopping me from doing that either. And sometimes it's not just me who would do it. I would gladly partner with others, who have complementary expertise that really makes it a stronger story, right? Because it's like, no one knows everything about this stuff. And, the starting point is we need to admit that first. And that's why you bring in consultants and experts to fill those holes, right? But it's very much a thing about, technology is important, but at the bottom line is still about, what is it that's going to make your business more successful? So I tend to think in terms of more being a business consultant than a technology
Right.
consultant. There's lots of engineers out there who can go under the hood and really break it down and get into the details and the coding and the LLMs and all that stuff. But that's not me. And frankly, there's so few data scientists out there that expertise is pretty rare these days. We're
How,
all kind of figuring it out as we go.
how do you win business? Let's say you said let's say 10 of you guys out there that are true independents. You got the boutiques. Because how do you say, hey, you should hire me, but not the other 9 guys? Like, what's
Oh,
your edge? What's your niche? I'm sure you know the other 9 guys, but like, why would
yeah.
they pick you and not, B through
Well,
J, the other options?
Well, so for starters, because we're such a small group, we're pretty collegial. We travel in packs because if we're all covering the same technologies, we generally get invited to the same conferences. So the event I'm going to be at, for example, next week, most of that crowd will be there too, because we're all doing similar things. It's not so much like I, at least, don't really chase or get involved in like competitive bid situations. That's pretty rare for the independent consultants. It's really more about the relationships. And so the businesses that know me and want to work with me, there'll be a couple of things. They will come to me and they may solicit a couple of different pitches from others as well. That's fine. But generally one of the issues a lot of them have is because our pool is so small, it's just good business to mix it up. In other words, going back to the same analyst over and over and over again makes it look a little too cozy, right? And the optics of that, if
Oh,
you're
I see.
right.
I see.
So
Yeah.
it's just good business on both sides. So it's generally more about you build the relationships personally with the vendors, and all at different levels, by the way. And in time, because we're such a small group, they get to know who's really strong in which areas. So like they may say, so maybe one analyst really has a lot of expertise in, say, the Europe market or the Asia market, and they say, oh well, we're doing a product launch in Asia. They'll figure it out. They'll know which analyst really lines up nicely with that particular market. And they'll understand that. And we all have a common level of expertise, but then there's a lot of niche things within those that say, hey, you know what? This guy knows contact center, but this guy doesn't know UCAS. We need someone who knows both. Okay, let's talk to those analysts, and they can figure it out. And there's the ones who know you, right, Eric? Like your business too. But then there's the leads, the inquiries that come in from my website, and then that starts whole new relationships where they kind of the kimono opens a little bit after a call or two, and then they say, well, here's where we're really struggling. It's often, how can you help us? Much like, how do I start with AI? Because frankly, and I'm really glad this is why we're doing this, Eric, most people don't understand the hell of anything what an analyst does. I have a bit of an explainer video about it on my website.
Oh, really? That means so many people must have asked you what you did that you thought, I need to make a video because I'm tired of answering this question over and over
No,
again.
yeah. I mean, to this day, none of my friends know what I do, and my mother's never understood it. I don't blame her. She's, that, but you know what I'm saying? It's like it's hard to put a finger on and say, well, this is it. So I have tried over the years to articulate some of that via my website. The people in the tech vendor world, they're very aware because they have analyst relations programs. So there's no schooling needed for that. But often it will be like maybe the smaller companies who haven't really worked with analysts much before. So this is where different conversations happen because I have to show them first what it is that an analyst can do and can't do. We get lumped in with PR a lot. They think that we are going to write them press releases. They think we're going to write articles about them and pitch them to magazines. No, we don't. That's not what analysts do. So there's a lot of education that's needed to say, here's what we do, here's what we don't do. And then it gets a little clearer to figure out, okay, I get it. Let's talk about the things you can help us with. And, can you propose a program or propose an article or something that would be beneficial?
How do you work then with the PR firms or the companies? Because obviously there's a big analyst relations program. A lot of the vendors, they want to get in front of you, right? They want to get you to write about them. They have their PR team, their AR team that are trying to reach you. How do you best work within that ecosystem? What do you want to see? What do you want to avoid?
Well, sure. So for companies that have established AR programs, like AR is kind of like your point of contact. you have to kind of like respect the process, so to speak, and say, okay, well, I will work with AR because they get a lot of the inquiries from within the lines of business, right? And they say, okay, well, we got someone, for this product launch is going to need some support. And over the next 2 quarters, we're doing a marketing rollout campaign. We're going to need some assets. This is kind of getting into the shop talk of what they need. And then they'll say, okay, well, we need some stuff. We're going to do this internally. And then for other things, we're going to go outside and then we'll work with an analyst there. So that's how that relationship goes. So there's AR, analyst relations, but there's also, as in your world, Eric, there's PR, which there's some overlap in those two spaces. But again, PR can look to analysts to help them with their clients in a variety of ways. And a typical one, of course, is getting cited in press releases, right? Where they're going to have some news to get out there and they want to, give it some more credibility, have an analyst provide a quote for that. So generally the analysts who are working with those companies are familiar with the products and stuff. And the PR agencies generally know who those analysts are, or if they don't, they should come to us and say, hey, could you provide a quote for this? We know you've been working in this space. So that's one way. And another way, too, of course, is it's like everything else. It's who you know and who knows you. So within PR, when you're pitching new clients, coming to them and saying, we have a stable of analysts we work with regularly who know your business, that adds value to your story. And also within the practice. So PR firms, they've come to me off and on saying, hey, we're trying to beef up our tech practice, in particular in the customer service arena. Okay, well, then I'm your guy because I know that space really well. I can help you accelerate your closings, targeting the right companies, getting the right approach, and, obviously building me in either to your projects or to have me, almost like subcontract me out. And, there's a business side to that, referral fees, all those kinds of things, right? So there's all kinds of angles, and it's a lot of intersecting for sure.
I like what you said earlier, because there's no license or like journalism ethics or financial stock analyst types of rules. It is a little bit of a free for all. Like every analyst can kind of do what they want. Some of them are former journalists, right? Some of them are former whatever. They've all gotten here different ways. So they're playing by different sets of rules.
Yes. And that brings us to another topic, which we should at least speak for a minute, and that's influencer. So in the digital age and the social media age, influencers carry a lot of weight. Obviously, I still don't understand, to me in the consumer world, they're just spokesmen for products. They don't have any particular expertise per se. Some do, but they're basically in it to make money. The influencer persona is becoming stronger and stronger in our world, technology vendors. So what used to be just called an analyst event is now, in a lot of these companies, framed as an analyst and influencer event. So there are two different camps, and some are really good influencers, but that their real expertise is how they amplify other people's messages. They are not, I hate that word content creator, but they're not thought leaders. They don't produce their own original material or research. But that's fine because there's still a lot of value in delivering reach for a client.
Are you annoyed by them? You seem a little bothered by them.
Well, the bother part is, this is my mantra for this stuff. All analysts, by definition, are influencers,
right?
Because people trust us. But not all influencers are analysts. So I have no problem with influencers who are positioning themselves the way I've been describing. As you say, it's a little gray. So when influencers start to kind of take on the persona of an analyst as an industry expert, we know who the experts are, so they're not fooling us. But there are some who will try to kind of, wear that hat and pass off as.
Are these social media focused influencers? Or are there people who look like, are they writing white papers? What is the influencer non-analyst person pushing out there? What kind of?
The non-analyst type is they're really in the business, as I say, of reach, amplifying messaging.
But just on social media, or where are they?
Yeah. Well, no, it's through that's their bread and butter, right? It's social media channels, driving engagement, LinkedIn, X, whatever, Instagram, TikTok, And that's all legitimate stuff. The market needs this.
Are vendors paying them? Like, are vendors paying them
Sure,
like they're
of
paying
course
you?
they are.
Yeah.
Because what's happening, coming back to what I said earlier, Eric, about how do the vendors differentiate, right? If they're all using very similar AI capabilities. So one answer to that is, I'm an MBA marketing guy, so I view everything through the lens of marketing and branding. And all the vendors now are becoming much more conscious of their branding, how they're going to market. And for them, that reach that influencers deliver is gold. It's like it's really, really valuable to them. The content is almost secondary sometimes. So we have to wear both hats, right? I have a reach, organic reach from my various followings. That's great. But I don't have a million followers out there. But an influencer knows how to reach a million people. So there's a place for both, right? And I just find it's a little harder for the buyers to know the difference and to think, oh, well, these influencers are talking to me now and they seem to know this stuff really well. I think we're going to hire them to do some stuff. And they may never have worked with analysts before. And that's totally fine. This is all part of how we learn. Because also, too, Eric, I being in the space a long time, it wasn't the digital world with social media 20 years ago. It wasn't. Now it is. And the people in the buying decisions, I'm sure you're seeing this too. They're younger now and they're digitally savvy. They don't think in terms of the way we do, who have
Right.
kind of
They're
analog.
going to just go look on LinkedIn or Twitter and some quick web articles, and maybe that's enough for them to make their decision.
Yeah, and this ties back to AI, because why do I need to hire an analyst to write something for me if ChatGPT can give it to me in 2 minutes? And that's a legitimate argument. But then, of course,
what do you tell people who are now you're competing against a free product?
yeah, well, I say, listen, this is the thing where the younger generation is moving more into these decision making and buying roles. This is the world they know, and for them, it will be good enough, right? But for the more experienced, more savvy buyers and users, professionals, people like us in the analyst world, we know the difference a mile away. The vendors who typically hire us know the difference a mile away. So they'll say, okay, yeah, we can spit out a few of those. But if I really want something that's got a real, you can tell it's the real thing, they know. And so you can, not to fool people once or twice, because this is going to become the norm. It just is.
But it's just going to all go away. Like in 20 years, will a job like yours disappear because it'll all just be AI and influencers?
20 years?
5 years?
2 years. I've seen in the last 6 months, even I've seen enough of a shift where, we all have to, your business too, we all have to keep reinventing, moving forward, because the criteria for the buyers drives everything. And as they follow certain things that translate to value for them, that's what they're going to do. And that's kind of how the market,
How have you
goes.
reinvented yourself then in the last couple of years, or how will you reinvent in the next year?
Well, I'm certainly, you get the cues and you see how a lot of analysts are responding. People don't read as much as they used to. The in-depth critical analysis is a smaller and smaller audience for that. And that's where I have to kind of gravitate more and more to. I'm not going to have success trying to write for a broad audience because ChatGPT could probably do that pretty well, and they won't know enough to know any better. So that's fine. There's a market for all of these things. So we just have to be a little more focused on our value prop, using the tools maybe a little more progressively. What that means is more video, maybe more audio, less longer form writing, consumable stuff that's easy for people to kind of pick up on and run with. But on the other hand, like your business too, you can't give it all away either. You got to make a living. So this pressures on all these sides. It's for independence. Like, we don't live off of subscription fees from big clients we can just ride on that. We have to
on per project, usually project fees.
Well, there's both. There's a mix of retainer kind of engagements that it's more ongoing, which is always the best because, again, that's about the relationships. But then there's certainly more, transactional stuff where, an inquiry comes in, hey, we need a white paper. Oh, okay, I can do that. But what you really want to steer them to, and your business is no different, is, okay, I can give you that white paper, but if we talk a little bit more about your business, your marketing objectives, the longer term things, there's other ways that I could provide value and help you be more successful in what you're trying to do. Then that conversation becomes a little more strategic, right? Less transactional.
Oh, John's trying to upsell us. He's trying to upsell us on more
selling all the time. All the time. I'm not downselling you, that's for sure.
Never downselling. Yeah.
Take the cheapest option. No.
Yeah. It's like, you don't want a white paper. You just want me to put one tweet out. That's it. You don't want I'll give you less than a white paper.
Yeah. Well,
what should let's say someone who's running an AR program who's trying to reach you, right? What's the number one thing good and the number one mistake to avoid in terms of them coming to reach out to you? Say, hey, I'm now running AR on behalf of blah blah blah, telco, VoIP company, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to hear from them? What do you not want to hear from them?
Oh, well, what I want to hear from them, this is presuming I'm not already working with them.
Yeah, let's say they're trying to get in front of you. Maybe they're trying to get you to write about them and they don't want to pay. They say, just get a meeting with us, but we don't have money for a client.
I'm doing that next week with a UK company. That's exactly what we're doing. You say, well, it's kind of like the first one's free. It's a two-way street. When they come out to AR, as you say, they want coverage, right? They want someone to make them look good. But what we're really trying to do is say, okay, we need an initial meeting, an initial briefing. I need to learn more about your business, and you got to learn more about my business, because what you're thinking is perfectly fine, but you need to understand, there's a broader kind of menu here that you could consider, because there's a lot of different things an analyst can do. So just because you say we need an article, that's fine, we can do that. But so the fact that they are coming to me, that's an opportunity for, to position what an independent analyst can do for them versus, a firm, that kind of thing. So, because they may not know enough of the difference. And secondly, because we're a small tribe of independents, my job to them is to say, by the way, we're a small group, and the way you're going to get good value from us is, talk to each of us, and you'll get a comfort level pretty quickly of, who you think might be easy to do business with and help your business, right?
When they say let's say we want an article, where's that article going?
Well, this is a good one, because just like we have this screen here for folks watching, there's a split screen, one on each side. So I do the writing, PR does the publishing. Like this, I tell vet clients there's two ways to do it. I have friendly relationships with a handful of the pubs. So yes, I can get articles in magazine, like in trade journals, in our spaces. So that's something I bring to the table to say, okay, I know for sure XYZ pubs will take what I give them, but I've got to conform to their editorial guidelines, which means I don't talk about your company specifically. I can talk about you along with others to show what the broader market is doing. That I can do.
But do people say, then why am I paying for that then? Why am I paying for you to talk about my competition?
And it works. Sometimes it works. It says, by association, your company is listed in there, and say you're not in the top 3. Well, that people will say, oh, I didn't know these guys were doing this. That might work. And that has worked.
Like it bumps them up to the bigger, the bigger bucket, basically.
Yeah. But the ones who want that, the answer is very simple. If you just want someone to talk about you and how great your company is, that's sponsored media.
Right.
I don't do that. You go to the publisher, you pay them a crap load of money, and they just say, you can write whatever the hell you want.
Right. It's an ad. Yeah.
Yeah. We label it as sponsored. Everybody knows right away, even though I could be the one writing it or even ghost writing it. That's the understanding going forward. But I don't do that. That's not my business. I would be out of business if that's what I did. So that's kind of one approach. The second approach, though, that I tell them, I say, no, we really need some solid name recognition in here. This is where the PR companies who have the good media relationships can come in and say, okay, here are the pubs that we know we can get you into, but there's a process. We have to pitch the idea first to the editor, and they have to approve it. And only then can we come back to you and say, okay, I can get you into Forbes. I could get you into Fast Company. Those are, more consumer-oriented pubs. But here's the guidance from the editorial team that says, this is what you have to write to. And generally speaking, that's probably not going to line up well with what they had in mind. Unless the PR company knows how to pull strings or has friendly relationships with the editors and say, hey, listen, this client really needs some help. Can you just do me this favor? Maybe that's between you guys. I'm not in that business, right? But it's, again, the relationships with the media.
But that original idea of, like, so you write an article, the company's paying for it, but other people will get mentioned in that article. You find that will
Well,
still work and everyone gets a win out of that?
Well, I find that's the most ethical way to do something that's going to at least get the company's name associated with the topic. I mean, that's what I could bring as an analyst. There are analysts, though, Eric, I will tell you, that will happily shill for the vendor. They'll take the money and they'll do it. And sometimes they can get it published, sometimes they won't. I come from the publishing world, so I know how that game is played. So I'm sensitive to that, and I really respect the need for editorial oversight, because otherwise the other solution, of course, is the only way I can do this is I'll write the article and I can say a lot of good things about you in a balanced way, and you publish it on your website, and then
Right.
you guys let it ride and push it out there on LinkedIn, on your socials. That's perfectly fine because you're the publisher. You can do what the hell you want
Right.
with it,
Right.
but it
Is it
loses credibility. It doesn't have the cachet of being in a No Jitter
right?
or Channel Futures or whatever.
Is it true? And I have just a couple questions. Is it true that the big research firms, is it going to be pay to play? Like, is a small firm ever going to get anywhere trying to just be, hey, write about us? We can't afford to be a client, but you need to know that we're important in this sector.
Yeah, I mean, uh, it's not my place to put down any of these companies, but there is always is and will be a pay to play element to some of this stuff. But I'm not going to categorically say that's how it works. I mean, I saw elements of that when I was at Frost and Sullivan, and it's no different with the other companies. That, of course, the incentive is, only work with companies who can be paying clients. But there will certainly be cases, the fit has to line up, where say an analyst firm, whether it's big or boutique, is initiating some new coverage in a sector that they haven't done much before. So they got to get friendly with a company. They got to know who's out there. In cases like that, and say, hey, you know what? You fit into this new area of coverage for us. So let's talk to you. We can't guarantee what we're going to do for you, but you fit the profile of what we're working towards. So that could work out well. But if you're trying to say, well, all you talk about is Microsoft and Amazon and Google, and we're like a little pisher guy at the bottom of the pile, so you're never going to get their attention, and they're not going to give you any attention because you cannot afford to play at that level. I mean, it's all about budget. So you have to find, every size of vendor has to find their kind of level of
Right.
where they can get the best bang for their buck, because they can throw good money after bad with the big firms. But if those vendors aren't important to those big analyst firms, it's only going to go so far, right? So it's a matter of where the fit is. If you need them more than they need you, well, you'll pay the money to go there. And that every business works like that.
Right. So you mentioned you're independent. You talked about, you at your firm. Who are the and associates at J. Arnold and Associates? Who are these characters? Are those characters around?
No, I'll be very, very direct. No, there are no like formal associates. So the way, to position an independent, single consultancy that way, it's really to say that as project needs dictate, I could bring in a network of people who are in my circles to say, okay, well, I need someone who's really strong on mobile networks. So I don't have that background, but I could partner with another
But the
consultant.
person who does, the guy
Yeah.
in his place. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I never pretend to be an organization. All of my peers who are independents operate exactly the same way. I don't think they call themselves associates, but we're all in the same boat. If we get a bigger project, okay, we can share the work, right?
Will you work with some of the other sort of competitors in your space? You said you're collegiate. Will you guys team up?
Yeah, of course. So some of them, yeah, there are also, and this is not exclusive to our little corner, but we have there are industry like collectives. So for example, I'm part of one that's called BC Strategies that I've been tied to for a very long time. And it's a virtual collective. But again, the idea is to strengthen numbers of saying, under one umbrella that we've got we have like a pool of maybe 20, maybe 30 independents who have various levels of expertise in various things. The brand hasn't been leveraged probably as big as it could be, but it's a pretty unique mix of, say, if you want all the thought leader types in one place, this is the home for it. So I contribute content there on occasion, and we do pitch group projects on occasion as well. We're say, hey, say you have a program you want to run, maybe it's a marketing campaign, but you don't want to have one analyst name associated with everything you're doing.
Right.
We can bring you a pool and say, let's bring 3 or 4 of them in, and then you can have a nice little rotation all under our banner. That's not a bad value proposition.
Right. That makes sense. This has been fascinating, Jon. I've learned a lot. I found, while you were talking, I found the video on your website about, let me explain what my job is on this video, so anyone can find it on the homepage of jarnoldassociates.com. Yeah.
So that I think that's going to be replaced soon by a new thing that went up today, actually. But
oh, wow.
Are you talking about? I'm holding a tablet.
Yeah, you're holding the tablet from a few years ago.
All right, so that's pretty old, but that was one of those. Tell us what you do, Jon. I said, okay, I'll explain it. Now, if you really want to have some fun, Eric, if you don't know me that well, comedy is my kind of comedy and music are the things that keep me going. If you care to do it, or certainly steer the listeners here on that website landing page, next to that is another video with a kind of a stuffy looking guy in a suit.
It says, or would you rather listen to this guy talking about side fumbling with a straight face? Wow.
Yes. It's about 2.5 minutes. Yeah. And this guy, I don't know how many takes they did, but it goes nonstop. The most incredible string of babble speak you've ever heard. And he does it all with a straight face. And it's hysterically funny. And in other words, what I'm trying to say is, if you want engineers to school you in technology, this is what it's going to sound like. But if you want clarity, if you want business level that you actually can do something with, talk to me. Otherwise, this guy, is your alternative.
I'm going to look at the Rockwell Retro Encabulator.
The Encabulator and the side fumbling. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I don't think anybody ever looks at it, but I leave it up there because I think it tells a story.
I'll click on it as soon as we're done. Jon, thanks so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Me too, Eric. Really appreciate it too. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.